So today we are so fortunate to have with us a remarkable individual who truly embodies the spirit of empowerment and achievement. Alissa Gray, one of the Women with Vision honorees, is an exceptional lawyer in the field of probate litigation here in Phoenix. Her expertise and leadership have not only earned her the title of one of the best in her field, but also positively influenced the growth and success of others around her. Her impact goes beyond the courtroom. She has been instrumental in mentoring young lawyers within her firm, helping them grow and thrive. Thank you for that. In fact, her guidance and support have been transformative, leading to one young lawyer making it from associate to a shareholder under your mentorship and to the firm's board of directors. Her contributions extend beyond even the legal profession. She is a trailblazer in the field of mindfulness, sharing her insights and knowledge through speaking engagements and her written works. So Alisa is one of the founding members of Women in Law, which is an affinity group within the firm that fosters skill building and relationship building among women lawyers. Her dedication to uplifting and empowering women in the legal profession is truly commendable. Help me welcome Alissa Gray to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Oh, I just need to take a moment hearing all that. I'm a little kerflumped. So first of all, I want to thank NAWBO and Susie and Anya and everyone for inviting me to be here today. It's truly an honor. And thank you again to SRP for the wonderful brunch and this amazing facility. And I really want to thank Chris Kalp. I didn't know he liked me that much, to be honest. And I hadn't heard the words that he put forth for the application for Women in Vision. So now I guess I have to be nicer to him in the halls. So as Chris mentioned, Tiffany Bosco is a full-service law firm headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, but I want to tell you a little bit more. We not only do commercial things such as bankruptcy and creditors' rights, but we have lawyers who work in commercial litigation, employment, business entity matters such as mergers and acquisitions, family law, probate and trust, planning and zoning, financial services, pretty much the full gamut. And I'm really thrilled that several of my colleagues are with us today, so I'm going to ask you to raise your hand as I introduce you. First of all, May Liu and Jillian Bauman. They work in the area of mergers and acquisitions, business entities, setting up the LLCs, helping people understand how to structure their businesses. And Jody Bohr, she works with employment issues, primarily on the management side. Tina Ezel, she's a general commercial litigator. She's one of these litigators who can pretty much take anything from start to finish. Matt Burns here is Chris Kalp's trusted paralegal. And Elise Adams, probate litigation administration. And Jim Fassold, who is in probate litigation administration. He's also my husband. And my business partner and my life partner for over 35 years. All right, I was asked to speak to the theme of betting on yourself. And so I do what we do now, right? We Google, and I found this great quote from Beyonce. If there's one thing I'm willing to do, it's bet on myself. Well, there we go. What else do you need, right? Just be like Queen Bee, and we got it, right? All right. Well, to me, betting on yourself is about believing in yourself, having the courage to take steps towards a goal or a passion, even if, or especially if, it requires you to step out of your comfort zone. To me, this requires preparation, training, planning, a lot of trust, and ultimately being able to let go of the fear of failure and shame. Now, my path towards becoming a businesswoman who believes in herself was not a direct path at all. Oh, I've been working hard for a long time. At 14, I started my working career working in a tobacco field in North Carolina. Hey, I got paid $13 a day and anything I wanted at the Tasty Freeze. Yeah, the Tasty Freeze, right? And that same summer, I taught arts and crafts to elementary school kids. So I was always really compelled to work and to make money, but I didn't really have a path of what that would mean. My father was a geologist, my mother was a teacher, so they worked for governmental entities, which is great, noble professions, but they never worried about the things that business owners do. So I didn't grow up in that kind of a family. Eventually, I graduated from high school, but there was no plan for college. Sadly, my parents' divorce left our family in shambles, and I was pretty much on my own. So I kept waitressing. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, at 16, I started at Bob's Big Boy, right? I one time even dressed up in the Bob's Big Boy costume for a parade, but anyway. So I was a waitress at 16, and I've waitressed and bar and did all that stuff. But so eventually I graduated, and I needed to figure out my path because I was on my own. About a year after high school graduation, I borrowed $100 from a family friend so I could take a couple of community college classes. I was kind of sure I was not going to do well, and I didn't want to embarrass myself by asking my parents for money. I don't know if any of this resonates for y'all, where the imposter syndrome came to visit. It still visits me occasionally, but now I can just go, oh, it's you again, and kind of push them off aside. But boy, was it prominent in my life back then. So I took a couple classes, waitressing at night, going to school during the day, took a few more classes, waitressing at night, going to school during the day. Moved back here to Arizona where I lived as a kid, started waitressing again, met that guy. Although that's a whole nother story I'll tell you about if you want the fun facts. So it took me about 7 years to finally finish my undergrad with a bachelor's in intercultural communications, which no one knew what that was back in 1985, but I liked it, but it didn't give me a clear path. When I would apply for jobs, and I'm like, I am here to communicate. People are like, what? So I kept waitressing, kept trying to figure it out. Now here's a fun fact about me. I was somewhat of a party girl granola head at the time. Okay? So I spent my time backpacking and hiking in the wilderness, and then going to clubs in Tempe. Anyone ever go to Chewy's, places like that? Remember that? And another part of me, though, started to explore yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, and other contemplative practices. To pay the bills, once again, I'm waitressing, I'm bartending, I'm catering, substitute teacher, executive assistant. I tried to break into the architecture and design industry in the late 80s, but I don't know if some of you may remember we had a little recession back then, which we thought was a big recession until 2008. And then we realized that was a little recession. So that wasn't a great time to break into architecture and design industry. So I went back to ASU to job fairs, walking up to tables, submitting my resume. It's kind of hard to bet on myself when I was being told I was too old. I was 28. I was disheartened, I was discouraged, and I was very worried. So my mother nudged me towards law school. She said she'd support me. I said, great, but I didn't ask what she meant by that. She meant emotionally. I thought she meant financially. But by the time I figured that out, I had already been accepted into ASU School of Law, and I was on my way. And I was scared to death. I didn't bet on myself, and I didn't believe in myself. In fact, I was pretty sure that someone was going to tap me on the shoulder and say, excuse me, there's been a big mistake. You need to pack up your stuff and get out. It took me a long time to realize that I belonged. So that's that old imposter syndrome. Show of hands if anyone is familiar with the old imposter syndrome. Yeah. And I never told anybody that I was interested in yoga or spirituality or anything like that. I just felt that I had to put all that aside and get serious so people would take me seriously so I could get a job, right? So I could finally find a way. So I did find a way. I found a job at an insurance defense firm here in Phoenix. I billed a lot of hours, but I kept wondering if this was the path for me. Honestly, I didn't feel I had a natural talent as a lawyer, but I knew that I could work hard. I knew I could work hard, so I did. I worked really hard. And I started to experience serious health issues, such as pre-ulcer stomach problems and what I think now I would describe as panic attacks. Some of you may not know that the legal field is actually, it's very prevalent to have a lot of anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and so forth. It's part of our culture. Now, I did trust my gut enough to walk through some doors that opened, and I found my way out of insurance defense and into this probate niche that I've been cultivating for about 30 years. Once I got into this area, I realized that I actually enjoyed working with direct clients, families, people who are navigating the space around death, dying, dementia, and dysfunction. Fast forward again, 1999. Jim and I are working at the same law firm. He followed me to law school. Again, we'll talk. I'll tell you that story. And we realized that our bosses didn't really have our best interests at heart. So with 2 children under the age of 3, and my father was dying of cancer back in Virginia, we jumped off the cliff and started our own law firm, Gray and Fasselt PC. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know anything about business, but we learned. We had to learn about collecting, negotiating a lease, negotiating a copier and a printer, personnel issues, hiring and firing. He got to do that. Sometimes it was great. Sometimes it was super, super scary. But we kept pushing. I don't know if I thought of it as believing in myself or betting on myself, but maybe some of you know what it's like when everything is riding on you and you better make it work because you got mouths to feed, you got bills to pay, right? Well, along the way, I found myself back on the yoga mat. To my surprise, I noticed that within 6 weeks or so of regular practice, my reactivity level had decreased significantly. The nasty email would come in from opposing counsel. Historically, I would meet that nasty email and raise it, right? And I would do it right away. And I started to realize that I can take some space. I can take some time to consider my response. That, to me, was a revelation. Now, some of you may know that the word yoga means to yoke or to join. And the idea is that it's the joining of the body, the mind, and the spirit. So while we see a lot of the pictures of people doing these amazing poses, that's just one small aspect of what comprises the whole philosophy or world of yoga. It involves, sure, the physical practice, which helps with strength, flexibility, and balance, but also breathing techniques, meditation, ethical philosophy, and principle. So, in 2006, I went up to the continuing legal education director of the State Bar of Arizona, and I said, I have an idea. I want to bring together some people to talk to lawyers about stress management through yoga, massage, time management, things like that. And I was kind of ready for them to say, no, that's not appropriate. But instead they said, sure, do it. So I put together a group of speakers, a doctor, some other attorneys, massage therapists, and so forth, put out the flyers and waited. And for those of you who've done event planning, you know that nervousness, like what if you throw a party and nobody comes, right? To my surprise and delight, we had standing room capacity. In fact, we couldn't do standing room because the fire department said, no, you have to tap it out at like 125 people. And I knew I was on to something. I could sense that there was something here. So I decided to become a certified yoga instructor, and I've taken a lot of courses for teacher training and so forth. And we began to, Jim was along with me for most of this ride, we began to teach lawyers, law students and professors, judges, and other legal professionals in rooms like this, a lot of conference rooms at the State Bar Convention, in law firms, in law school classes. Now, I knew I was on to something, but I felt that I lived in a bifurcated world. What I mean by that is, I was nervous that if I disclosed to my legal colleagues that I was interested in these practices and that I was doing it to manage my stress, that they might think I was becoming soft and maybe not as effective anymore. And so I kind of downplayed that when I was in those worlds and those venues. And then when I was teaching yoga, I was thinking, I don't know if people want to take a yoga class with a lawyer because lawyers aren't normally thought of as being calming and providing balance and so forth. Well, to my delight, I was wrong on both counts. My law practice thrived. I enjoyed so much attention and just satisfaction from providing the teachings of the yoga and mindfulness practices. I found that by believing in myself and by betting on myself, I was actually able to live a more authentic life. So in 2016, I partnered with an attorney from San Francisco, and we created the Mindfulness in Law Teacher Training Program, the only mindfulness program by lawyers for lawyers. I didn't realize it back in 2006 when I took the stage and taught Lion's Breath for the first time in front of a bunch of lawyers that we were on the vanguard of the wellness in law movement. So now I have taught yoga and mindfulness to thousands of lawyers and legal professionals around the country, around the state. And today, law schools offer mindfulness courses for credit, and many law firms bring these practices in to assist their staff. Brings me back to Tiffany and Bosco. Our firm and our unique financial model has allowed me to be my authentic self and to bet on myself. I've been welcomed, accepted, and embraced. And I'll leave you with these words from the great sage Christopher Robin in speaking to Winnie the Pooh. Always remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Thank you.